Everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I'm Carol and I'm glad to have you here. So we are going to be entering spring later this week, and that means we're going to be planning and starting our gardens, and for those of you who enjoy home canning, you'll be putting together your canning plans to preserve all that delicious produce you're going to be growing. So I thought now would be a good time to just kind of do some refresher on canning basics, whether you are a new canner. I know many of you are new to canning. You contact me and you ask a lot of questions about canning, or if you are a seasoned canner and maybe have developed some bad habits, I thought now would be a good time before the canning season is in full swing to just kind of go over some canning basics, some common problems, and guidelines that we should be following. So we're going to start with talking about the 10 things every home canner should know to stay safe. And the first thing is always use a tested recipe or familiarize yourself with safe canning guidelines. Not all recipes are safe for canning. There is a lot of recipes out on the internet that are not safe or not tested, not proven to be safe. So be careful when you find a random recipe on the internet. When I find a recipe that I think sounds really yummy, I always go back to the National Center of Home Food Preservation or a ball canning book to kind of check out what they're saying is safe, to kind of compare what ingredients they're including, and make sure that it is in fact a safe recipe to use. To be on the safe side, it's always best to use recipes that have been scientifically tested for acidity and processing time. Safe canning resources are going to be the National Center of Home Food Preservation, of course. Ball is always a good resource. There are some controversial things that Ball does, but their recipes are tested, so I do trust Ball. The USDA, you can get the complete guide to home canning from the USDA online. I will leave a link to that below. It's very easy to get a hold of. I encourage everyone, whether you are a seasoned canner or a new canner, to have that book because there's a lot of basic information in it that's great for everyone to know and great as a refresher. Ball also has a website with recipes on it, so you can trust those recipes. Bernardin is also a great resource. They are part of the Newell Corporation, who is the corporation that owns Ball. So those are great resources to use. Two other books that I want to mention are the Amish Canning Cookbook. This book is by Georgia Veroza. She also has a newer version of this. She is a certified home master food preserver. So the recipes she has in this book are pretty spot on as far as safety is concerned, and her newer one as well. The other book worth mentioning that I do use sometimes is Food in Jars. The author is Marissa McClellan. This book was recommended to me by a certified master home food preserver who is a friend of mine. She is also the lady who runs Home Food Preservers, the Facebook group. She teaches home food preserving, so I trust her judgment in using this book. I think Marissa McClellan also has a website, but I will leave links to all of these resources below, especially for those of you who are new, so you can easily find them. But these are great resources to use. The National Center of Home Food Preservation, obviously they only share tested recipes. Some of their stuff is limited. I mean, there's a plethora of information on there, but the recipes are limited to some degree. So if you want to get creative with your canning projects, the All New Book of Canning by Ball is a great resource. It has some more up-to-date, more fun recipes in them instead of just basic recipes. So just make sure that you are not just finding random recipes on the internet without confirming that the recipe is either tested or uses safe canning guidelines. The other thing that you should know, the difference between water bath, steam canning, and pressure canning, and when it's appropriate to use them. Water bath canning and steam canning, those use the same guidelines. So you can swap out recipes. If you find a water bath canning recipe, that is also safe for steam canning. So be aware of that. Pressure canning is required for low acid foods, which includes vegetables, meats, soups, stews, beans, stock, anything like that. High acid foods like jams, jellies, pickles, tomatoes, those are all high acid foods, or we add acid to them to make them safe, such as salsas or pickled items. And those are safe for water bath or steam canning. So make sure you understand the difference. In water bath canning or steam canning, you're just bringing water up to the boiling point, which is 210 to 212 degrees, depending on your altitude. And that's all the hotter it will ever get. Pressure canning reaches much higher temperatures, about 240 degrees. That is the temperature required to kill spores that can cause botulism, so we want to be really careful of that. So do not use a pressure canning recipe for water bath canning. It's not safe to do that. Always adjust for altitude, and I apologize, I really don't mention this enough. I've tried to mention it more in my canning videos, but you need to know your altitude. The easiest way to do it is to go to Google and say, what is my altitude? Just type in what is my altitude or what is my elevation, and it will come up for you. I believe there's also an app that you can download on your phone if you want to have that on hand, but it's really important that you know your altitude. Our canning books and the basic canning guidelines, their instructions are always for canning below 1,000 feet. If you are above 1,000 feet, there are altitude adjustments that you need to make for your products to be safe. So the very first thing you should do when you start home canning is make sure you know your altitude and know what adjustments you need to make so that your product is safe. Number 4, leave proper headspace. Headspace refers to the space between the product that you're canning and the top of the lid. It's anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to an inch. When we can pie filling, we usually leave a little more than an inch to allow room for expansion, but your headspace is really important. It's important for it to be as accurate as possible. Typical guidelines are 1/4 of an inch for jams and jellies, and 1/2 of an inch for fruits and tomatoes, 1 inch for vegetables and meats. Too little or too much headspace can cause seal failures. An easy way to measure for headspace, you can use a debubbling tool like this, and it has the increments here listed here for you. So you would let the top of it rest on the top of your jar to measure how far down the headspace goes. The other easy way to do, if you don't want to use your debubbling tool to actually measure, this line right here, the bottom rim on a canning jar, from here to here is roughly an inch, so that's pretty safe. If you go to the middle, you want to eyeball it to the middle, that's about 1/2 of an inch, and this top rim here is roughly 1/4 of an inch. So that's an easy way to eyeball it if you want to do it that way. If you want to measure perfectly, you can use a debubbling tool to do that. I will leave links in the description box below to a debubbling tool so that you can easily find that on Amazon if you need one. Number 5, don't skip acid when a recipe calls for it. Guys, acid is really, really important when a recipe calls for it. Mostly when we can tomatoes, it's required for us to add some acidity in the form of lemon juice or citric acid. Other recipes, not just tomatoes, but tomatoes are a big one. Other recipes call for lemon juice or citric acid. Anytime that a recipe calls for lemon juice, make sure you are using bottled lemon juice. The acidity in bottled lemon juice is controlled. Never use fresh lemon or lime juice unless a recipe specifically states that you can. Vinegar, you want to make sure you read the label, make sure that your vinegar is at least 5% acidity. Most white vinegar is, but you got to be careful these days with labeling. The manufacturers can be deceptive sometimes, so make sure that you are using a 5% acidity or higher when you are working with vinegar. Adding acid is what makes those products safe for water bath canning, so it's a very important step. And don't ever skimp on the amount, always add the amount that they state to add. Number 6, start with the right equipment. Make sure you are familiar with what a water bath canner is, what a steam canner is, what a pressure canner is. Those are important. And even And within pressure canning, there are two types of pressure canners. There are weighted gauge canners and there are dial gauge canners. Make sure you read the manufacturer's instructions that come with your canners so that you know clearly how to properly use it. The amount of times a weight needs to rock or jiggle can vary from canner to canner, so make sure you read the manufacturer's instructions and you are clear about that. The All-American canner, even though it has a dial on it, it is considered a weighted gauge canner, and it is required to rock 1 to 3 times a minute, meaning it will rock and then stop 3 times a minute. The Presto canner needs to rock continuously, which is different. So make sure that you read the instructions that come with your canner and you know what is appropriate for the canner that you are using. It's really important to do that. The other thing that is important as far as equipment is concerned, you want to make sure you are using jars that are approved for heat processing. There are jars at some of the hobby shops that are not necessarily, that are just supposed to be used for hobby things, not necessarily for being put in a hot canner. So make sure you are using jars that are approved for heat processing. Also be kind of careful when you are buying jars at flea markets, or if someone has given you jars, make sure that they are, again, approved for heat processing and it's not just a decorative jar. Lids are another piece of equipment that is important for canning, so you want to make sure that you read the manufacturer's instructions and you understand how to prep your lids. Different manufacturers require different procedures for prepping your lids for canning to get a good seal. So make sure you know what those are before you start. That will help prevent seal failures. The other equipment you'll need is a jar lifter that helps you get your jars in and out of your canner safely, a funnel obviously to fill your jars, and then like I mentioned earlier, the debubbling tool. These are invaluable. I love my debubbling tool, but as far as debubbling is concerned, you could also use a plastic butter knife or a chopstick. You don't ever want to use anything metal, as you could chip the inside of the jar if you do. So just be aware of that. Those are just a few pieces of equipment that you will be using in all of your canning projects, so make sure you have what you need on hand before you get started with a project. Which leads me to number 7, back to the debubbling tool. It is imperative that you remove air bubbles before sealing. After filling your jars, you guys have seen me do this a million times, you want to slide the debubbling remover or a spatula even. Like I said, a plastic butter knife works, chopstick, around the inside of the jar. I kind of poke around. You want to go around the outside or just inside the jar to release air bubbles. This prevents air from being trapped inside the jar. It ensures proper headspace. When you are debubbling, your headspace may change. So when you debubble, if that makes space for more food, you can go ahead and add more of your canning product to the proper headspace for whatever recipe you are using. Properly debubbling also improves the sealing process. So debubbling is important. Make sure you have the proper tool to do it correctly. Number 8, don't over tighten your lids. So when we talk about adding your lid and then screwing on the band to fingertip tight, that is the term that we use, finger tight or fingertip tight. You just want to screw the band on just until you start to feel some resistance. Some of you complain about your lids buckling. If once you have resistance and you tighten it further, you run the risk of your lid buckling. So you don't want to do that. That is too tight. You just want to put it on, start to screw it. When you feel some resistance, you want to stop. All we need the band for is to hold the lid on during the canning process. It does not need to be super tight. Number 9, let your jars cool undisturbed. So once you carefully lift your jars out of your canner, you want to put them on a towel. My favorite thing is just the dish drying mats. You can find these everywhere at the grocery store, Target, Walmart, all those places carry them. They're a little bit thicker, so that's another reason why I like them as opposed to a kitchen towel. So you want to just make sure that after your processing time is up, you lift your jars, put them on something like a towel or the dish drying mat. Make sure you let them sit undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. That means don't mess with the lids. Try not to bump your jars or jostle them. That could interfere with the sealing. of the lid. So make sure you let them sit undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. Once your 12 to 24 hours are up, thoroughly wash your jars. I like to leave my bands off because I can easily tell if a seal has failed when it's in storage. Some people like to leave the bands on. That's fine if you want to do that, but I highly recommend that before you do that, you thoroughly wash the jars, remove the band, make sure you wash it and dry it really well, and then you can put it back on if that's what you choose to do. If you don't clean it thoroughly, if any product has oozed out underneath the lid during processing, it can mold and get nasty underneath the rim of the band. So I don't store my jars with the band on, but if you choose to do so, just make sure it's really clean before you do. Number 10, and this might be the most important, when in doubt, throw it out. If there is any concern whatsoever that either the seal of a lid has failed, or you didn't process correctly, or if your product looks off or smells off or just doesn't seem right, throw it out. It is way better to throw something out than to eat it and be sick. So make sure you look for signs of spoilage. Before I open a jar of food, I always check to make sure that the seal is intact. So I make sure the lid doesn't flex up and down. The other thing I do is I lift the jar up by the lid. You should be able to lift your jars by the lid and the seal should stay intact, so don't be afraid to do that. That's a way to test for seal failure. So just make sure that your lid is in fact sealed really well before consuming your food. When you open your lid, you should hear air escape. It should make that sound like that. So make sure you listen for that. If there's any question that what's inside, something has happened to your product inside your jar, it's always best to throw it out instead of consuming it. So those are the things I wanted to go over just to cover. That's a lot of basic canning information that every canner should know, in my opinion, whether you are a seasoned canner or you are a brand new canner. It's always nice to be reminded of these things. And I also get a lot of questions about these things, which is what prompted me to do this video. So as always, if you have other things that you would like for me to cover in a video regarding canning or other tips, tricks, guidelines, questions, whatever you may have, leave them for me in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer them, include them in a future video, or just get back to you individually if it's something that just pertains to you. I appreciate you coming along with me today, guys, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day and happy canning.